deeper into my analysis of these damn Graysons, right? Obviously, this is Invincible, so if you're up on the show, you understand what I'm talking about. If not, I can give you a great education about what the show actually is all about. So this show is ultimately like an invasion conquest story, right? The story of the Viltrumites invading Earth, right? And it has caused all type of insecurities among humans about which side we're supposed to be on, right? Oliver, I'm just getting this ready for Facebook as well. Enforcer. And so, okay, so man, I can't type and talk at the same time. I just discovered that about myself, but that's gonna be all right too. Okay, so we have Oliver Grayson, who is a Viltrumite enforcer, and this is why it's a problem. Now, someone had brought up the Mauler twins because this is the first body he catches as a child. I think it's important to understand that the first body you catch is as a child. Now, the first thing I'll say about the Mauler twins is that these guys were not innocents in any way. Let me see if I can bring this in a little bit tighter, so we can kind of look at some of the stats on here, right? So we can kind of get a better view. So I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit if I can. Right? It's not perfect size, but okay. So the Maulers, who we see here, these guys were actually violent criminals. They actually were. These guys were violent criminals. They were serial offenders. They had broken out of prison multiple times, right? And they were responsible for massive amounts of destruction and death, right? We can say that right off the bat. These are high-level threats. This was not random civilians, right? But we do live in a world of soups, and Oliver isn't the only soup around. The problem is that, right, so he doesn't kill these guys out of rage. That's a big red flag right there, right? Like if he was a rage kill, that's also scary. But for a child to murder at this age, this is a little bit more hardcore, right? And this is pure Viltrumite logic, which is why it's a problem. Threats are removed permanently. Efficiency is more important than morality. Mercy is a weakness, and it creates future risk, and strength is authority. So from Oliver's perspective, he didn't commit a crime. He solved the problem, which is a problem unto itself, right? So we don't live in your world. We don't live in a conquest world, right? So what he does is, because we live in a civilization based on laws, our civilization is different, right, from Viltrumite civilization. It's even, and his Viltrumite civilization is even different from his Thraxian, right? So he has two components. He clearly goes all Viltrumite here because there's no Thraxian in his belief system. The Thraxians, because they live such short lifespans, value making an impact. They would never go about through war and conquest. So that's completely the opposite, okay? But he didn't get any of that. So what he sees is that the Maulers ending now ends any threats of tomorrow. But that could be anyone that he deems to be too dangerous. And that's the problem. This is a very slippery slope that gets away from any sense of like judgment and calm, right? That you are now the judge, the juror, and the executioner all wrapped in one, which is convenient for you if you're a Viltrumite. But if you're not, this is a problem for everybody else's world. The Viltrumite worldview is that it's a hard world out there. Weakness invites chaos, right? Order is maintained through strength, and that's it. Every life, he's opposite. And this is where he and Mark really, really different, and this matters. Like, the differences between him and Mark are even more. Now, I've been critical of Mark. You're running around just busting your seat up in Eve, not being responsible, dropping out of school. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot. Having sex in the house with your mom in the house and your little brother, which is one of the most disrespectful things that a young man can do. That is one of the most disrespectful things that a young man can do. Getting in your parents' house, okay? That get out and get a spot. Eve could have made a spot at that time, right? So you guys didn't have to be there. That's disrespectful to your mom. And your mom was whack for allowing that to go down. But Mark does see the world as having value. Every life does have value. Mark does believe that justice requires a process, that restraint is strength, not weaknesses, and that you don't get to decide who lives and who dies. He literally says that to him. So when he says that to Oliver, he's not just saying that killing is wrong. He's saying that you don't get to make all that judgment. So in Oliver's mind, this wasn't just murder, right? What he did in that moment was take an authority over humanity. He elevated himself to the place where he could make decisions about how our world operates because he has the strength to do it. That is pure Viltrumite thinking, 100%, right? So let's break it down. Let's get on into Mark, right? Or let's go get on into Oliver here, right? So he becomes, in my estimation, even scarier than his pops, right? Omni-Man knew it was brutality. Omni-Man justified it because of his mission. He was a soldier at war, and he hid his true nature. He struggled with it. We do see it. Like, I look, I believe that Omni-Man, you crossed the point where you done so much destruction. There is no redemption from you. It's nice that you're helping repair something that you were a part of fucking up in the first place. But at the end of the day, okay, this is the least you can do. Literally, what you're doing right now is literally the least that you could do. Okay. The problem with Oliver is that he doesn't feel any conflict about it. He does not see a moral dilemma. He thinks that Mark is being irrational. So the line that we talk about, he doesn't see this line. This is why he's going to be a problem later, right? And this non-mother that he has raising him isn't helping the situation. So for him, this idea that the Viltrumite question isn't how you stop the mission, it's conviction without any doubt. You have no doubt in what you're doing all the time, right? So was he wrong? There's not a question in whether he was wrong. The question is, can someone who has Viltrumite DNA in them, can they ignore their Viltrumite upbringing? Now, it's an odd pairing because, again, Mark is a Viltrumite and a human. Oliver is a Viltrumite and a Thraxian. And we would think because the Thraxians were so peaceful that maybe that merger would be, he'd be even more sensitive. Because Mark's more sensitive to life than what Oliver is by a long shot. But he doesn't get there. He goes stronger Viltrumite, and that's the core of who he is. Like he's not misbehaving. He is behaving exactly the way a Viltrumite is supposed to behave. If you were to go talk to Thrag or any of those guys, his actions, they would line up with being like a good young Viltrumite. You're fearless. You're confident. You go out there and you handle that business. You're strong. You believe that strength dominates. So Oliver really lines up to being like very much like a regular ass Viltrumite. This is what they do. So he's not evil in that sense, but this is even scarier. And I will say, yeah, the Maulers deserve to have justice. That's where we live at. We live at where there's justice. Because here's the thing. None of us can handle living on Viltrum. Not one single one of us. You don't want to live on Viltrum. You don't. So if you're arguing that he did the right thing, ask her this. Tell me, do you want to live on Viltrum in that world? Because you get beat down by them kids too. Because you are weaker than them, right? Because they do have strength. That means that they get to tell you what to do, right? So you personally wouldn't even survive in a Viltrumite world, but yet you're defending Viltrumite behavior on your planet. And again, that sounds like a particular political party that's chosen to bring down enforcement on everybody else. And then when that same enforcement comes down on them, all of a sudden they're like, I didn't vote for this. I'm not talking about a particular group. I'm talking about a fictional group, right? But you get what I'm saying, that you support something as long as it's hurting other people and you can justify that hurt. But let that same person come back and judge you or somebody you love, then all of a sudden you're burning up your hats and pulling signs out of your front yard, right? So this is what we're talking about with Oliver Grayson and why Oliver Grayson is a significant threat that we can't have operating on this biosphere. We need to go back up to Thrax or you need to go on over to Viltrum where actually that fits in. But he's enforcing Viltrumite belief systems and philosophy on Earth in real time. So I just wanted to dig in on that because I see it's a lot of questions about what I had to say about Debbie Grayson, and Oliver is part of her mess, right? So we're going to continue to talk about it.